Okay. Good morning. So my name is Bagg, and I'm from Alberta Parks. And there's been a lot of talk, obviously, over the last few days about the barriers to access to various to countries, to hotels, to restaurants. And although there are barriers to access to parks, one of the beautiful things about them is our mountain parks have been around for 60 million years, and they'll be around for 60 million more, and they're there for anyone to see, whether you're hiking to the top of them or driving through them. What you get from them, that the emotional feelings, the mental feelings, they're there for everybody. The benefits exist just from being there. So I have a video that I'd like to show you that really showcases the inclusion program that Alberta Parks is going for. The province of Alberta just signed off on an actual inclusion program, so the government has recognized the need to really invite, whether it's disabled people or elderly or youth, new Canadians to the parks. Again, the access is easy in the sense that the parks are already there, but it's giving people the information they need to come and see it. So yeah, this video really showcases the spirit of inclusion that Alberta Parks is going towards.
The Rocky Mountains are just this super humbling group of mountains. They're so rugged and raw and very youthful in a sense.
The Rocky Mountains definitely shape the people. I think it shapes them to be very patient and very calculated, but also very skilled.
There's all sorts of people in this world that are developing new technology to get them into the backcountry.
We're all trying to do the same thing, and that's just figure out how we can get further into the backcountry. And for no other reason than because we all just enjoy it out there. Try and pinpoint in your mind what you love about it. And I don't think anyone would have the same answer. It offers all these lessons, whether it's just like sitting still and letting nature happen around you, or it's like that striving to get further and achieve a goal that you couldn't before. Anything I wanted to do, I needed to make it. It's being limited by those things that force you to think creatively.
Why do we do what we do? I guess it's just searching out that feeling of peering around that corner to see what's next.
It just forces you to be present.
It's not necessarily about the destination with backcountry skiing, it's the journey and the process of getting there. But there isn't really objective, it's just being there.
Just changing your perspective to find new things and look at things a little bit differently is kind of the story of this area.
honestly a little terrified right now. I think everyone agrees the mountains teach you an amount of respect. It's not a lesson that you read in a book and try and remember. It's just forced upon you when you get there. It wasn't so much a draw to the backcountry as it was to just something different. And the awesome part of the backcountry is there's never any finishing. There's not an end. I just want to see what's next. Thank you. So I realize that there's a bunch of able-bodied people skiing in that clip, but what's important and what it's trying to say is the message, and that's that those professional skiers that have access to the parks have the same access and the same feelings that I get from the parks, and you don't have to see to enjoy the parks. You don't have to hear to enjoy the parks. You don't have to be able to walk to enjoy the parks. The smells, the sounds, the feelings, that's what's important. And there's no finish. You don't win by getting to the top of the mountains. You don't check that box and you're done. You can, one of my colleagues took his son for a hike, and the objective was a lake at the top of a trail, and his son was 5 years old and got bored pretty quickly about the whole thing and said, "Hey Dad, what about there's a hole in a tree over there?" And he's like, "Oh, I never noticed the hole in the tree, sorry." He's like, "Can we go check it out?" He's like, "Sure, yeah, let's go check out the hole in the tree." So they wander over to the tree, and Don pokes his phone through the hole, and he just took a picture so that Malcolm could see what was in the tree. And they pull it out, and there's a photo of a bunch of baby birds. And it was like it really hit Don at that point. He's like, Malcolm didn't care about the lake. He just cared about being where he was and being present in that moment and enjoying the things that he wanted to, the experiences he wanted to get from it. And so part of that, and part of why I work for Parks, is because I've developed with the help of Alberta Parks that giant thing sitting in the middle of the room, which is the Parks Explorer. So despite the fact that I truly believe you can get a lot out of parks just from driving through them. I mean, many able-bodied people, that's how they access parks. To go one step further, at least the mobility impaired need a device, need something to help them. And so we've been working on exactly that. And it looks pretty aggressive, and you saw in the movie that I love the parks, and I endeavor to go out in them, but that same device was used recently for a little girl with a brain injury. She goes to Camp Horizon, which is a kids camp in the Kananaskis, which just being in the Kananaskis, the camp is an amazing place to go for kids anyways. One day they took it one step further, and a group of volunteers can pull or push or assist the person in the Parks Explorer, and they took her on a hike up a mountain called Moose Mountain. And she'd been carried in, she'd been brought on hikes before in a one-wheeled adaptive cycle where you're more of a passive occupant, and it's done amazing things. But what was different this day was that she was able to steer. And so, as opposed to the volunteers like Malcolm and his dad, Don, you know, Don was trying to choose the destination of the lake, and Malcolm was able to derail it because he was able-bodied and he just ran away and found the hole in the tree. And that's what was so special for Lindsay this particular day, was she was able to steer. You know, there's a yellow flower on one side of the trail and a purple flower on the other, and she chose which flower she went and checked out that day. And so it wasn't about, you know, the ultimate goal for the group of volunteers of getting her to the top. It was all the things in between that were really special to her that day. So the idea of extending the access by making devices, inviting people is a huge thing that we're working at doing, because like I say, the parks are there, they've been there, they'll be there for a long time, but allowing people and telling them that they're there and to come out and giving them the relevant information is what we're working towards. So that they, you know, if it's a 1-hour trip, then you don't have to worry a lot about accessibility. Like if you're just driving through, you can enjoy the sights, the sounds, the smells. If you want to stop and get out, that's when we need to start working about which trails are more accessible, which facilities are more accessible, and expanding the experience. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Do you have any question for Christian?
Hi, Christian. Laura McGowan with Alberta Tourism. We've talked on the phone, never met. I wanted to make an observation at the risk of my own job, perhaps. But that video was amazing, and I just want to make the observation that where's Travel Alberta? Why aren't they promoting that video? It was so fantastic. Why aren't they putting that out there? I know you can't answer that question.
No.
It's just an observation, and that's something I'm going to take back and really push for.
Thank
Is
you.
that video available on YouTube or
It will
online?
be. It went online on skibig3.com
Okay.
on Monday. But I do have, this is sort of an aside for everyone here, I do have access to all the footage. They were
Awesome.
It was a group of my friends who have the production company and have made ski movies, and I've made camera equipment for them in the past. And what was beautiful about shooting that was that they've traveled around the world shooting the best skiers, and it was their personal decision to include me. And so it felt really special that, yeah, my love of the outdoors shone through enough for these group of people that have access to anybody to pick me to be in it. So it's truly inclusive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
Another question? Christian, you told us that you are the inventor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my background is in adaptive equipment and building and designing them. And that was what brought Alberta Parks and I together. Because like I say, at least for the mobility impaired, and what I said in the video, innovation is what's important, and things are what help the people with mobility issues to get outside.
Okay. Congratulations.
And I believe that and I'd love to learn more about the needs of the blind and the deaf, because again, I think it's just, innovation is what we need. there are no codes that we can apply to the outdoors. So we need to work around and figure out how to have people enjoy them as they are.
Hi, my name is Antje. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think that was very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
And I think my question is more, who is funding this? You know, if you have an idea like this, who's funding this?
Well, Alberta Parks, so the inclusion plan was submitted to the federal government or the provincial government and was signed off on. So the government is who's funding it. There's been innovation grants that we've used to help fund the building of the Parks Explorer. We have a program with Camp Horizon where we found a corporate sponsor to pay for them to get a Parks Explorer, and then, you know, they'll bring the company will have a day where they go assist kids to go up Moose Mountain or any other mountain or any other trail. So bringing companies in to help fund is a big opportunity for us as well. Now that we have, especially when you have a thing that they can put their name on, companies like to plaster their name on things.
And how many of those do you have?
Currently, there's 4 of that version. We have about 5 prototypes prior to that, so it's been a long evolution.
Thanks.
Another question? Yeah, okay.
Can you describe a little bit the people that this is intended to provide access, you know, what kinds of people?
Yeah, I touched on it briefly there, and it's for everyone. There are a number of devices out there, like off-road hand cycles for, you know, the fit, they've been like described, you know, outdoorsy people, but this is a program chair. So anyone from cerebral palsy to elderly to a fit individual can go in it, and there's a tow hook up front, and there's a push handle on the back. So you can be as involved or as passive as you like when you ride it. So it's for everyone, and that's the point that Parks was really going for. It wasn't that we made something for a small group. It was, and that's why the design has taken so long, because we've had to try it for so many different people. But we've never had someone who didn't enjoy their day. That's the beautiful thing too, and that's when you've got those views or those feelings, those sights, those smells, you can't really go wrong.
Christian, this is for you. I really liked what you said about innovation, and I'm wondering if you have thought about or would consider thinking about putting that perspective and your knowledge to work, thinking about creating I don't know, vehicles for individuals who can't transfer from their wheelchairs or need to bring their medical equipment with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken to, like, now that we have something to show, I've gone to the rehab hospitals, done some in-services with recreational therapists, physiotherapists, occupational therapists. So there are a number of things that need to be done, a swivel seat, a transferring platform. The next steps will be, it was getting it to work functionally for an outdoor environment, and now it needs to take the next steps to different seating for cerebral palsy, a seat that raises up for elderly, stuff like that. It'll be an ongoing, I always compare it, because it looks like a mountain bike, to when 25 years ago, Gary Fisher and his friends put fat tires on a road bike and bombed down a mountain and had a great time. And that bike today would be junk. But they had a great time then, and so we've got, you know, in 25 years, I think what this looks like now will be totally different. So yeah, continued innovation and continued, like, ideas, even doesn't have to be from a designer or engineer or even anyone in a wheelchair. Anybody's ideas could be the next greatest idea. So continued collaboration with all people.
I've got a question. It's Bill Forrester from Travelability. It's a question for virtually everybody on the panel, and I'm going to rope the girl from Tourism Alberta into the same question. We've got some really good worldwide academic research on health and well-being. We've got some really good academic research on tourism patterns for people with disabilities. We've got innovation coming out in pockets. We've got new equipment, and we know about the aspirations. When, I guess, I was going to start with the academic thing, when is the academic going to transcend into tourism courses, into finance courses, and then transcend across into something that ought to be marketed? Because if you look at Alberta, as we said in earlier sessions this week, you've got the Icefield Parkway. We've already seen there are probably a dozen top inclusive attractions. You've now got the outdoors available, but nobody is coordinating that into a package to market. I'd like some comments from both the academic world of how you translate that into your academic courses, from Tourism Alberta on how you then get hold of that, and then how you meld the whole lot together.
One of the things we've identified is that, yeah, as a government agency, we need to facilitate the people coming to the parks, but we're not about guiding them through the parks or, like you said, creating that package. So we're working with companies like Chris Kelowna, who are working with us to sort of build these packages safely, market them. Sort of we support them, and we put the golden stamp on it. But you could then get an inquiry from an individual about accessing the park, going on a guided tour, as would an able-bodied person. There's mountain guides for everybody. You climb Everest, you get a guide. So it would be directing people towards various organizations that are then capable of taking them on these trips and are familiar with all the research, all the studies, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think in terms of crossing our sectors, we were beginning to do this. You're hearing about this with health and with Alberta Parks as sort of those two sectors co-financing these studies. I've just been talking with our colleagues from Chris Kelowna about some of my academic friends that are working in phys ed and outdoor leadership and tourism. So I think we're beginning to make these nudgings, right? It's I think I agree. It's that boundary, that park boundary, that picture that we saw at the beginning, that we need to kind of blur those boundaries a little bit. We need to blur who's doing what and this sort of disciplinary structure that we have. I think it's beginning. We need to see more of this. We need Dawn to be an associate professor or an adjunct professor in nursing, and I need to work more with parks. These are the kind of overlaps that we're just nudging towards. It's what needs to happen. We need to include industry in that, as you say. So, thanks.
I just wanted to go back to respond to Bill's question on the tourism side. As I mentioned, I work for the Alberta government in the tourism side of formerly Tourism, Parks and Recreation. They've now split us. We don't have it currently as accessibility as a specific project that we're going after. It's something that I want to change. It's something that I've been working on for a while. But we know that there are these innovative experiences and tour operators out there. There are missing links, as I've had discussions with other Albertans who are here. How do we overcome that before we're market ready? Before we can put it out there that you can come and have these experiences, we want to make sure that all of the pieces to the puzzle are there so that we're not missing the mark or setting expectations that are not there. But something that's unique about Alberta, or something that I love about Alberta, is how innovative we are. So we see a problem, we try and fix it, hence the apparatus you see up front there. So we welcome that from tour operators. We know we have other transportation providers here who saw that need, like I mentioned in my presentation yesterday, and filled that gap. So it's just a matter of finding out where they are. One thing I'm taking back from this conference is we're developing a report based on what we've heard here, what the best practices are, and sending it up to our minister so that she can hear what's going on and what we can do moving forward to make Alberta more accessible.
My name is Troy Becker, and I came with Christian and Alberta Parks, and I'm actually a service provider in Western Canada. And I have a couple of comments. One was about the Trail Rider. The Trail Rider is accessed through the Disability Foundation or Sam Sullivan Foundation out of Vancouver, and you want to talk to Stephen Hunter. We currently own about 6 or 7 of these Trail Riders, and we've helped Christian in coming up with what is needed from a Sherpa standpoint. Our organization was originally contacted by Don Carruthers, and we've been in existence for over 13 years providing backcountry and accessibility travel in Western Canada. What's interesting, and my comment is more to your question, and that was the connection. And a lot of the information that Sonia gathered is from the experiences that we provided, and the equipment has obviously come from the generation of the ideas from the experiences we provided. And we are actually providing those trips, and we are working right now collaboratively with a bunch of different agencies and that to build more inclusive programming that is being marketed more worldwide. So that process is actually happening already in Alberta and BC. It just hasn't gotten to the scale that everybody's expecting it yet.
The last one.
Okay. I think just to, it's Bill, is your name, Phil? Just to add to that comment, I think with all the amazing ideas and innovations that we've seen happening and the stories we've heard about what's going on, TED Talks, I don't know if any of these presentations have been given on TED Talks, but if they have been, I think we'd all love to know that they're available. And if they haven't, I'd love to see some of them out there, because I think that would be a great way to share the information. For people who aren't familiar with that, TED Talks, I think it's Technology, Education, and Design. Is that right? And it's available online. So just a comment.
Sorry. No, yes. Look, I think that's a great idea. Just one matter I forgot to mention when I was presenting is that Parks Victoria developed a manual for its park rangers on compiling park access information for visitors with disabilities and other requirements. I've got a copy of it here, and it, if you're interested in looking at it, it's a valuable resource for our park rangers in compiling park access information for visitors who are wanting to know how accessible the sites are so they can plan their trip. So I just thought I'd mention that, so thank you.